Why does Saturn have rings? What are the different types of clouds? How does an octopus swim? Why does a tiger have stripes? How do flowers grow?
Tell Me Why. The Video Encyclopedia is a reference work that's designed to show the answers to questions that young people ask. All materials used in this work are based upon the best-selling book series by Arkady Leokum.
What makes the weather?
What is weather anyway? It's simply what the air or atmosphere is like at any time. No matter what the air is, cold, warm, hot, calm or breezy, dry, moist or wet, that's weather. Weather may be any combination of different amounts of heat, moisture and motion in the air. It changes from hour to hour, day to day, season to season, and even from year to year. The Earth revolves around the sun while it revolves around its own axis. As it moves this way, it spins like a top. During part of the year, the North Pole tilts toward the sun. The rest of the year, it tilts away from the sun. Because of this tilt, the direct rays of the sun sometimes fall on the Earth north of the equator, sometimes directly on the equator, and sometimes south of the equator. The differences in warmth that are produced by the direction of the sun's rays cause the different seasons around the world. Now, oddly enough, the Earth is about 3 million miles nearer the sun in our northern winter than it is in summer. Why is it so much warmer during the summer? The reason isn't caused by the distance from the sun, but by the slant of the Earth's axis as it moves around the sun. The sun's rays are more direct during the summer, and that produces more heat. During the winter, the rays slant more and they spread out to cover a larger area. That's why it's cooler in the winter.
How many types of climate are there?
There are 5 major classes of climates. In the tropical climate, there are lots of trees and it's warm and rainy all year long. In the subtropical climate, the summers are hot and dry and the winters are wet and mild. There's enough rainfall every year to sustain their forests. Mid-latitude climates have got marine coolness, humid areas for the continents and cool areas for the deserts. High-latitude climates have very cold temperatures in both winter and summer. High-altitude climates are found on all high mountains, even those at the equator. The United States Weather Bureau has more than 300 official reporting stations around the country. All of these stations telegraph their reports to Washington, D.C., where they're noted on weather maps. The maps that the weather experts study show them a lot of things: air pressure, temperature, direction of local winds, cloudy or clear skies, rain or snow, and the amount of rainfall. Knowing all these things, the weatherman begins to get a pretty good idea of what to say about the weather that's coming to your area.
Why does it rain on certain days and not on others?
It takes the combined influences of the sun, the earth, and the atmosphere to produce rain. What is usually needed for rain is the movement of warm air against cold air. The warm air contains clouds and moisture, and when this warm air is cooled by the cold air, drops of water form and fall as rain. Some large regions of the earth have heavy rainfall throughout the year. Almost every point along the equator receives 60 inches or more of rain every year. A lot of rain falls on the windward side of the mountain ranges and less falls on the leeward sides. The rainiest place in the world is Mount Wailele, which is in Hawaii. It has an average yearly rainfall of 471.68 inches. The driest place in the world is at Arica, Chile. This is a desert high in the mountains of South America, and it receives only 2/100ths of an inch of rain a year. Rainfall is measured by means of an instrument called a rain gauge. The gauge at the United States Weather Bureau is shaped like a hollow tube. It's closed at the lower end and has a funnel in the top. Other rain gauges are shaped like this one. They are marked so that you can look at the gauge and know exactly how much rain is falling. The word humidity means the presence of water vapor in the air. It is found everywhere, even over great deserts. We have several ways of expressing the humidity. 2 of them are absolute humidity and relative humidity. Absolute humidity is the quantity of water vapor in each unit volume of air. Relative humidity is expressed as a percentage. 100% stands for air which is saturated or completely filled with water vapor. The higher the temperature, the greater the quantity of water vapor the air can hold. In condensation, a gas or vapor turns into liquid or solid form. This happens when it is cooled or compressed. There are two important changes that take place when a gas condenses. The first is that the volume of the gas decreases when it turns into a liquid state. The second is that heat is given off.
What is a rainbow?
A rainbow is simply a great curved spectrum, which is a band of colors. It is caused by the breaking up of light which is passed through raindrops. A rainbow is seen only during showers when rain is falling and the sun is shining. To see a rainbow, you have to be in the middle with the sun behind you shining over your shoulder while it rains in front of you. You can only see a rainbow when the sun is low in the sky in the morning and in the late afternoon. When sunlight enters a droplet of water, it is broken up just as if it had entered a glass prism. Inside the drop of water, we have different colors going from one side to the other. Some of this colored light is then reflected from the far side of the drop. From top to bottom, the colors of a rainbow are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet.
What is a storm?
Whenever there is something violent in weather, it is a storm. At sea, a storm may be a strong wind. Inland, a storm usually means that there is a weather situation that is marked by heavy rain, lightning, thunder, and strong wind. Where cold and warm air masses meet, they mix only slightly. The lighter air, which is warm, climbs up and over the cold air along a sloping surface. This cools the warm, moist air. It becomes saturated and clouds form, and the result may be rain or snow. When there is a discharge of electricity, it causes the air around it to expand rapidly and then to contract. Currents of air rush about as this expansion and contraction take place. The violent collisions of these currents of air are what we hear as thunder. The reason thunder rolls and rumbles when it is far away is that the sound waves are reflected back and forth from cloud to cloud. Since light travels at about 186,284 miles per second and sound at about 1,100 feet per second through air, we always see the flash first, then we hear the thunder later.
Is thunder dangerous?
There are many people who actually tremble with fear at the sound of a clap of thunder during a thunderstorm. There's absolutely no reason to have any fear of thunder at all. By the time the sound of thunder reaches you, the bolt of electricity which caused it, it's already done its work. You hear the thunder after the lightning flash simply because sound travels much more slowly than light.
What is a monsoon?
The word monsoon comes from an Arab word meaning season. During the summer, the warmer inland temperatures create low atmospheric pressure. That sucks the wind in from the surrounding seas. This is the summer monsoon. In the winter, Asia cools off rapidly and has much lower temperatures than the surrounding seas. These lower temperatures create high atmospheric pressures. This makes the winter winds blow from the dry interior regions towards the sea.
What is a cyclone?
A cyclone is a kind of storm that starts when warm, moist air from the equator moves northward into the northern hemisphere and meets a mass of cold, dry air that's moving south from the Arctic region. While this is all going on, the air pressure begins to fall at the center of the storm. This mass of air can fill an area from 400 to 1,000 miles. The winds move around the low-pressure area in a counterclockwise motion. This makes the warm, moist air move north around the east side of the storm, while the cold air moves southward around the western side. A tornado is a special kind of cyclone. It arises when conditions that cause ordinary thunderstorms are unusually violent. There is an updraft of air. There are winds blowing in opposite directions around the rising air. This starts a whirling effect that is narrow and very violent. Centrifugal force throws the air away from the center. This acts as a powerful vacuum on everything it passes. It can suck the walls of a house outward in such a way that the house will collapse. High winds that blow around the edges of a tornado can reach 400 miles per hour and blow everything down. A waterspout is a tornado at sea. A funnel cloud forms from the base of cumulus clouds or cumulonimbus clouds. As the tip of the funnel cloud nears the surface of the water, it stirs up the surface into a cloud of spray. As the funnel cloud dips into the center of this, it begins to draw up a vortex spout of water. The water that makes up the main part of the spout is always fresh, showing that it is chiefly made up of rainwater. A waterspout usually lasts only a few minutes. Most of them occur over calm waters in places where the temperatures are high and thunderstorms are frequent.
Tell me the difference between a hurricane and a tornado.
In a hurricane, the storm area is usually 100 to 400 miles in diameter, and the winds are in excess of 75 miles per hour. A special feature of a hurricane is the calm area in the center of the storm. This is called the eye. The eye is usually 5 to 15 miles across. Think of it as the hole in a donut. The winds rage around the eye, but within it, all is calm. The winds are light, usually less than 15 miles per hour. After the eye passes, the winds begin to blow with equal force from the opposite direction, since a hurricane is a circular storm. Hurricanes are common from June 1st to December 1st of each year. Tornadoes begin as black funnel-shaped clouds in a large thunderstorm area. It's only a few hundred feet in diameter and may last only a few minutes, but it destroys everything in its path. North of the equator, typhoons and hurricanes commonly originate in late summer or fall over warm tropical waters. They move westward and northwestward through the trade wind zone in a path curved to the right. In subtropical latitudes, such storms curve strongly to the east as they enter the zone of westerly winds. In the southern hemisphere, a similar curved course is followed, except that the storm track curves to the left.
What makes a wind?
Sometimes when we're outdoors, something begins to happen. A wind begins to blow. We don't know why, we can't see it, we can feel it. A wind is simply the motion of air over the earth. Wind is caused by one thing, a change in the temperature. Whenever air is heated, it expands. This makes it lighter, and lighter air rises. As the warm air rises, the cooler air flows in to take its place. This movement of the air is wind. Those winds which have special names have acquired them for different reasons. For example, you know how it feels when you have the doldrums. You feel listless and without energy. Well, certain winds are actually called the doldrums. When you're caught in the doldrums in a ship, you are becalmed. Winds that blow from above and below the equator are called the trade winds. Strong and steady, they got their name because in the days of sailing vessels, they were a great help to navigation. Monsoon winds are winds that change their direction with the season. In India, the monsoons blow south as hot, dry winds in the wintertime and blow north in the summer, bringing heavy rainfall.
What is fog?
A fog is a cloud in contact with the ground. The most common fogs are those seen at night and in the early morning over the lowlands and small bodies of water. In order for fog to form, the moisture must leave the air and condense. This means that it must be cooled because cooler air cannot hold as much moisture as warm air. When air is cooled below a certain point, called the dew point, then fog starts to form. When a mass of warm air passes over a cold land or sea, fog forms. It could also happen with cold air passing over warm water. This last condition is what happens during early morning in the autumn near bodies of water such as lakes and ponds. The warm and cold air currents mix gently, and then you see those fogs which seem to hang in midair over a body of water. In order to understand what dew is, we have to understand something about the air around us. All air holds a certain amount of moisture. Warm air can hold much more water vapor than cold air. When the air comes in contact with a cool surface, some of that air becomes condensed and the moisture in it is deposited into the surface in tiny drops. This is dew.
What is snow?
Snow is really nothing more than frozen water. It begins to form when water vapor in the atmosphere freezes. Tiny crystals are formed that are clear and transparent. Since there are currents in the air, these tiny crystals are carried up and down in the atmosphere. While this is happening, the crystals begin to gather around a nucleus, so that in time, there may be 100 or more gathered together. When this group of ice crystals is big enough, it floats down toward the ground. We call this collection of ice crystals a snowflake. When water freezes, it forms crystals. This simply means that the molecules come together in a special arrangement or geometrical form, and we call this a crystal. It so happens that a water molecule consists of 3 units, 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. So when it crystallizes, it has to form either 3-sided or 6-sided figures. Each branch of the 6-pointed star is exactly like the others, and it is the reflection of light from all these surfaces that makes snow look white. In most parts of the world, rain is the chief form of precipitation, and thus the chief source of water. But in frigid zones and at high altitudes, snow may be the most common form of precipitation. In fact, the snow that accumulates in mountains near dry regions may form a natural reservoir of water far larger than any built by man. When this snow melts during spring and early summer, it becomes a source of water for irrigation. In some areas, this melting snow may supply the only water available for crops.
What is water?
Water is a simple compound of 2 gases, hydrogen, a very light gas, and oxygen, a heavier, active gas. When hydrogen is burned in oxygen, water is formed. Water exists in 3 states: liquid, which is the common form, a solid called ice, and a gas called water vapor. Water changes into ice when it reaches 32 degrees Fahrenheit. At 212 degrees Fahrenheit, it turns into a vapor or steam. Water as it occurs in nature is never pure in the true sense. It always contains dissolved mineral material, gases, and living organisms. These impurities give our drinking water its very slight but pleasant taste. Only chemists can create chemically pure or tasteless water.
Why does ice float?
Ice is a solid form of water. Water expands greatly when it freezes, trapping air inside. This makes it lighter than water, so it floats. Water is the only known liquid that expands when frozen. It doesn't expand by just any amount. It expands by 1/9 of its volume. This means that if you start with 9 quarts of water and the water freezes, you will have 10 quarts of solid ice. Pipes can't stretch. If they are full of water and the water freezes, there is no room for the ice. It makes more room for itself by cracking the pipes. An iceberg is a piece of glacier that is broken off. This happens when the glaciers or rivers of ice push down valleys until they reach the sea. The end of the glacier breaks off there and forms a floating iceberg.
Tell me about lakes, rivers, and oceans.
Lakes result from the flow of water into low areas. They are inland bodies of water that occupy depressions in the surface of the land. These depressions are called basins. The lake basins are formed in several ways. Many lakes are the result of warping in the Earth's crust. Sometimes lakes are created by volcanoes. Lava can block the outlet of a valley. Sometimes the crater of an extinct volcano fills with water. Other lakes occupy basins formed by glacial erosion. River water comes in part from rainwater that flows along the ground into a stream or channel. Water may also come from snow and ice, from springs, and from lakes. Water collects in tiny rivulets which flow into small streams. From these streams, water moves into brooks. From there, the water flows into even larger streams that are also called rivers. There are many theories about the origin of the oceans. Perhaps they came into being as clouds of vapor which turned into water as the Earth grew cool millions of years ago. Scientists are pretty sure that most of the Earth's land was covered by the sea at one time in the past. There is evidence to show that certain parts of the land were once the bottom of shallow seas. Most of the limestone, sandstone, and shale found on land were deposited as sediment. Even chalk is made up of the shells of tiny creatures that sank to the ocean floor millions of years ago. Now that ocean floor is in England, Texas, and Kansas. The Dead Sea is the lowest body of water in the world, 1,300 feet below sea level. Normal ocean water contains about 4 to 6% salt. The Dead Sea contains 23 to 25% salt. The water also has a smooth, oily feeling because of the chloride of calcium in it. No animal life can exist in the Dead Sea. The Jordan River flows into it, bringing fish along with it. The fish die, furnishing food for the seabirds.
What is the Gulf Stream?
The Gulf Stream is an ocean current. It's like a river that flows through the sea instead of on land. The Gulf Stream is larger than any other river on Earth. The Gulf Stream comes from the movement of the surface waters near the equator in the Atlantic. It starts moving north of South America into the Caribbean Sea. The Gulf Stream starts in the warm part of the world, so it's always filled with warm water. The Gulf Stream travels up the east coast of the United States and then across to Europe. The winds that travel over the warm water bring mild winters to London and Paris, as well as to Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. Water enters a lake basin through brooks, streams, rivers, underground springs, and groundwater. Dissolved mineral matter is in the fresh water entering the lake from the ground and from rocks in the area. Where the climate is dry, lakes lose water rapidly by evaporation. When the amount of water that flows into a lake is matched by evaporation, salty minerals are left behind in the lake. Such lakes become salty and the saltiness increases with time. The Great Salt Lake is such a lake.
Why is the ocean salty?
We don't know how salt got into the ocean, but we do know that salt is water-soluble and passes into the oceans with rainwater. The salt of the Earth's surface is constantly being dissolved and is passing into the ocean. It is necessary for about 9/10 of the volume of seawater to evaporate for rock salt to be formed. It's believed that the thick rock salt beds that are found were deposited in what used to be partly enclosed seas. These evaporated faster than fresh water entered, and the rock salt deposits were thus formed. A gallon of seawater contains about 1/4 of a pound of salt. The ocean which has the greatest average depth is the Pacific Ocean. In an area near the island of Guam, there is a spot that is 35,400 feet deep. The next deep ocean is the Indian Ocean, and then the Atlantic Ocean is third. Each ocean has deep spots in them. The Atlantic has an area near Puerto Rico that is 30,246 feet deep. In average, all-around depths, though, the Pacific is surely the deepest.
What causes ocean currents?
Dense water sinks and light water rises. The densest water in the ocean is both cold and salty. The saltiest water in the ocean is in the tropics. The water is very warm and therefore not so dense as the cold, less salty water underneath it. It stays at the surface of the ocean. The salty water is pushed about by the winds. The winds and the shape of the coastlines push the circulating water together. The water has to flow much faster and it becomes a current.
What makes waves?
A wave is a way in which some form of energy is moved from one place to another. The wind provides that energy in the water. A water wave is mostly an up and down movement of water particles. The movement passes on towards the shore, but not the particles of water. In a water wave, the particles move in a circular path, up and forward as they are pushed by the wind. Then they move down and back as gravity draws the heaped up water back to a common level. These movements carry the wave along. Tides are caused by gravitation. The moon attracts or pulls the earth. This pull of the moon draws the ocean waters nearest to it towards the moon. The waters move like a broad swell or wave. The water on the opposite side of the earth gets the least pull from the moon since it's farthest away, so it forms a bulge too. So we have a high tide on the side towards the moon and also on the side opposite the moon.
What is a whirlpool?
A whirlpool is a spinning body of water. As water spins around in a narrow space, it tends to pile up on the outside of the spin circle and hollow out into a funnel-shaped hole in the center. This is a result of the centrifugal force. Larger whirlpools are caused by tides sweeping in and meeting an ebb current of the preceding tide head-on. A whirlpool in the ocean is nothing more than a flow of water in rotary fashion.
What makes a waterfall?
Ancient glaciers cut deep into mountain valleys, leaving the sides as steep cliffs and precipices from which water plunges down. In other cases, high plateaus have been lifted by movements of the Earth's surface, and the streams plunge over their edge. When a stream or river plunges over a wall of rock called a cliff or precipice, we have a waterfall. Niagara Falls is considered by geologists to be 10 to 15,000 years old. In the Ice Age, glaciers covered all of what became known as the Niagara region. As the ice melted, Lake Erie was formed. The overflow from the lake found an outlet to the north and became a river. As the river flowed northward, it spilled over a cliff, which was topped by a hard layer of limestone rock. That created the original Niagara Falls. Since then, the falls have been cut back by the powerful force of the water. They are now 7 miles upstream from their original location.
What's the difference between an artesian well and a spring?
Artesian wells are possible only under certain conditions. There must be a layer of porous rock or sand that is buried between two layers of solid rock. This porous layer must be exposed to the surface so that the water falling as rain or snow will sink downward until it's trapped between the solid watertight layers above and below. There, the great pressure on all sides holds it prisoner until man releases it. When an opening only a few inches wide is bored straight through the solid upper layer to the sandy layer, the freed water gushes to the surface with a mighty force. A spring occurs when water finds a natural opening in the ground that is below the water table. That's why most springs are in valleys or low places. The water in the ground escapes as spring water through the cracks in the rocks along the sides or bottoms of these low places. A spring doesn't defy gravity. It's always flowing down from some water level above it. Deep in the earth, the rock is very hot. This is probably uncooled lava, which is called magma. Gases from these hot rocks, mostly steam, rise through cracks in the rock and reach the underground reservoirs of water. The passageway from the rocks to the water is twisted and irregular. This interferes with the natural rise of steam to the surface. As the steam moves up, there's a violent eruption. As the steam bursts through the Earth's surface, we have a geyser. A geyser is a hot spring under great pressure. A wide range of subjects are available in this series now. Let's look at some of the questions that are covered in the Tell Me Why programs. Weather.
A tornado is a special kind of cyclone. It arises when conditions that cause ordinary thunderstorms are unusually violent. There is an updraft of air. There are winds blowing it.
Flowers.
A flower has a fragrance when certain essential oils are found in the petals. These oils are produced by the plant as part of its growing process.
Space.
Distances to the stars are so great that a unit for measuring distances was worked out. It's called a light year, and it is the distance that light travels in 1 year.
Water.
Water is a simple compound of two gases: hydrogen, a very light gas, and oxygen, a heavier active gas. When hydrogen is burned in oxygen, water is formed.
Gems.
When minerals are better, rarer, clearer, or more crystalline than others, they are called gems. Gems are the most prized and famous of all minerals. Diamonds, emeralds, rubies, and sapphires stand out as the true gems.
Ask for the additional volumes by subject from your dealer. They're available now.